A brief overview of this presentation is, first of all, I'll go through the project delivery options available, and I'll talk about the traditional design bid build approach. And the main focus of this presentation will be on the collaborative design approach that involves construction management at risk, which is called the CMAR, and the progressive design build, which is a PDB, and fixed price design build. And I'll also talk about what a potential client needs to determine in selecting the right approach for any particular project. And I'm going to end the presentation with a key takeaway of benefits of collaborative design approach. So first of all, looking at the traditional delivery approach, we have the design bid build on the left that typically involves selecting a design team and a separate, later followed by going through bid to select a contractor to proceed with a project. And then the focus of this presentation is the collaborative approach, that is the CMAR, which I mentioned earlier, and progressive design build, and then the fixed price design build. So moving to the design build approach, as the name suggests, first of all, there are three phases for this type of project delivery. That is the design phase, whereby the design documents are prepared and finalized before it's taken to bid. That is the second phase of the project, to invite several contractors to bid on the project. And then the final phase will be actual construction of the project when a contractor is selected to deliver the project. So the key components of this approach is that the owner select a designer and comes into a contract with that designer. And there's a contractual relationship between the owner and designer indicated by the solid black line. And then also there's a working relationship between the owner and the designer. And after the selection of the contractor, also there is a contractual agreement between the owner and contractor and a working relationship. But with this approach, as you can see, there is no working relationship or contractual relationship between the designer and the contractor. So you don't have that opportunity to collaborate early on the design. So what are some of the benefits of this type of project delivery? First of all, the contractor has the benefit of having a complete design package to bid on. And then the contractor comes in with a one lump sum bid for the project. And with several contractors bidding on the project, the usual approach is to select the contractor with the lowest bid. So in this case, since there's competitive bidding, the owner could enjoy some cost savings in selecting the contractor with the lowest bid. And what are some of the challenges for this type of delivery? Right? So first of all, although there's one lump sum bid, during the project, there could be change orders or legal claims that will also factor into the cost of the project. So there could be additional costs above whatever was bid as a lump sum bid price. And secondly, also, since the contractor was not involved in the design from the early stages, I think they usually build in a risk factor by increasing the cost of the bid that they put in, so that any prior knowledge that they didn't have on the design project, that will be factored in by the risk that was included in the bid. Right. And then finally, this delivery method doesn't give any opportunity to fast track the project or reduce the construction schedule, because there's no initial collaboration between the contractor and the designer. So moving on to the first collaborative design approach that I would like to talk about, which is the CMAR, the construction management at risk. So for this type of delivery method, the owner goes into an agreement with a design firm. So first of all, there's a contractual relationship between the owner and the designer, as well as earlier on in the project, go into a contractual agreement with a contractor, and also there's going to be a working relationship between them. And for this approach, the owner forces the designer and the CMA contractor to work together. So it's like a form of an arranged marriage. Although there's no contractual relationship between the designer and the contractor, the owner expects them to work together to go through the design process and then come up with what we call the guaranteed maximum price, GMP. And once the GMP is developed, that is what will be negotiated on as the construction price, and then we proceed with it. So why do we have the at risk in this name? The at risk come with the fact that the GMP once agreed between the owner and the contractor is the contract price. Any excesses or overages over this GMP, the contractor is expected to eat that cost. So that is why it's referred to as the construction management as risk. So moving on to some of the components of this type of project delivery, as I indicated earlier, the owner maintains separate contract between the owner and the designer, and another contract between the owner and the contractor. And the design is performed in parallel with early construction planning and construction estimating, with the designer and the CMA contractor forced to work together. They work through the process of developing the design and also getting input from the contractor as they move on, and also develop the estimate for the work. And then finally, the contract price, which is the GMP, is what is negotiated on between the CMA contractor and the owner to proceed with this type of project delivery. So what are some of the benefits, right? So for the CMA construction approach, you basically focus on quality, schedule, budget, and then the end product. With the designer and the contractor working together, the goal is to make sure that they come up with the best quality, and also how best to, shorten the schedule to deliver it within a specified time, and also make sure that whatever is delivered to the owner in the end is what is expected by the owner. And then also with this approach, since the contractor is involved early in the delivery of the project, the contractor provides input for the engineer to take into consideration during this design. So there's various factors that the contractor can bring in, so that as we proceed to construction, any risk that could have been maybe unforeseen circumstances would have been determined earlier on in the project by the collaboration between the designer and the contractor. And this also affords the contractor to procure what we call long lead items. Currently, over here, if you're working on a project that you need any electrical equipment like a transformer or a motor control center, the lead time could be anywhere from 30 weeks to 52 weeks, right? So if you want to wait to the end of the project to start procurement equipment, that means your construction schedule can span a period of going to 3 to even 4 years. But with this approach, once the design is locked in for certain key equipment that have long lead items, then the contractor can go ahead and procure these equipment whilst the design is still ongoing. So that is one key advantage of the CMA project. And also the GMP is guaranteed. Whatever is negotiated as the guaranteed maximum price is locked in, and the contractor doesn't have the benefit of coming in for change orders and also maybe ask for more money. So this also helps the owner to maintain, a fixed budget for the project. And what are some of the key challenges? First of all, with this approach, since there's a separate contract between the owner and the designer, and another one between the owner and the contractor, the owner is expected to manage multiple contracts between two different firms. And also, one key disadvantage of this is that the designer and the CMA, they are forced to work together. So it's the owner's expectation that the two teams will work together smoothly to deliver the project. But if it doesn't go on well, that could be a potential risk for this type of project delivery, right? And also, finally, for CMA, there are no predefined performance guarantee. So compared to design build, which I'll talk about later, there's no pre-defined goals for the contractor to meet. The goal is for the contractor to coordinate with a designer and come up with the most cost-effective way without any performance guarantee or prescriptive scope of work. So moving on to the next collaborative approach, which is the progressive design build. Right. First of all, with this type of approach, the designer or the contractor forms a team with an engineering firm that's the designer. So they come together as one team and then enter into a contractual relationship with the owner. And there's a working relationship between the design builder team and the owner for this type of delivery approach. And as this is developed, I think it goes through two phases. The first phase is when the design builder team, works on the project design and also on the cost estimate of the project and construction schedule, and develop the design until they get to a point where a guaranteed maximum price can be developed in the first phase. Once the GMP is developed, the design builder team engages the owner and then start negotiating on the contract price. So if the contract price is agreed on, then you move into the second phase of the project, that is the construction. So for this, the key component over here is that there's just a single contract involved, because it's a contract between the owner and then a team of the engineering firm and the contractor that come together. And then as they work on the project, they start with the development of the design, and then as the design progresses, also the cost estimate progresses, and progressively work to a point where the final guaranteed maximum price can be developed for this type of delivery. So one major difference between this and CIMA is that there's the option of what we call an off-ramp. So this off-ramp option gives the owner the option that if after going through the design phase and then the project code development, the GMP cannot be agreed upon, the design builder team can come up with, let's say, a project cost that is even more than what the owner has budgeted for. So if there's no mutual agreement on that, that is where the owner can exercise the off-ramp option. What do you mean by off-ramp? That means at this point, the owner will just tell the team that, okay, thank you for your design, give me the whole design package, and then that is it. We are not proceeding to the construction phase. And at this point, the owner can take the complete design package and then go send it out for bid, so that multiple contractors can come and bid on that design package, with the hope that the low bidder will come in at a price lower than what the design builder suggested as their GMP. So that is a key difference between the progressive design build and the CIMA approach, with this off-ramp option within this type of project delivery. So in this case, the progressive design build approach then turns into the traditional approach, because the design is complete and then you're taking it for bid and then for construction. Okay, so what are some of the benefits for this? So the owner is obviously removed from any conflict between the designer and the builder, because the designer and the builder come together and they form a separate agreement before they come to the owner. So any conflict between them, the owner is removed from it. They will have to sort it out themselves. And then since this also the design is developed progressively, there's minimal chances of change order, because the contractor is involved right from the beginning and is aware of the design intent and all that. So the chances for any change orders that will result in additional money is greatly reduced. And then the owner's budget is guaranteed by the GMP. So once the GMP is locked in, the owner knows that we are not going beyond that. And looking at the challenges also, for this type of approach, the owner has to define the scope of work clearly. There should be a descriptive project scope of work that has to be presented. Another way that you can look at it is also that if you cannot define it clearly, then you could establish some performance guarantee that a progressive design builder needs to meet. And also for this to happen, sometimes the owner will engage the services of an owner advisor, which is another consulting firm that can help them to come up with these performance guarantees or very prescriptive scope of work. And for this type of approach, also the owner doesn't have much control on the design process because the design process is internal to the design builder team. And any coordination between them is basically between the designer and the contractor. In this case, since there's no separate agreement between the owner and the designer, there's no way that the owner can enforce some of maybe their preferences. It's once it's a separate team, I think they do what they need to do internally, right? So moving on to the next one will be the fixed price design build, which is also another form of collaborative delivery. This is similar to progressive design build, but the key difference over here is that this project has a fixed price for both the design and the construction. So the team will be expected to deliver the project on a fixed price, which involves the price for the design and then construction. And for this also, you should have a well-defined or prescriptive scope of work, as well as also performance guarantee to make sure that the project goals are met with this. So this is very similar to progressive design build, but the difference is with this case is that the design and then the construction cost is fixed, that the design team and the builder needs to deliver this project under for that particular price, right? So moving on, what are some of the factors that you need to determine in selecting a particular project delivery approach? So basically, it's like putting the puzzles together. There are so many factors that you need to look into, but there are some 4 major drivers or criteria that I would like to highlight in this presentation. First of all, the owner needs to determine what is important to the owner. Is it the schedule of the project? Is it a cost? Is it a level of control that an owner wants to have in the design process, or risk allocation, whether the owner wants to take on risk or pass it over to the contractor? So these are all key items that the owner needs to look into in order to select a particular project delivery method. For the schedule, there are some projects over here that usually the projects are under consent decree, indicating that a court has mandated that, let's say, if a plant is discharging a particular waste at a particular concentration, then if there's new technology to reduce maybe the discharge limit, then the court can set, a time that within 2 years, this treatment plant has to meet this. So in this case, the major driver will be the schedule, that after 2 years, if you don't meet the schedule, there could be a daily fine which can go as high as $100,000 per day. So in this case, the client will pick the schedule as the major driver for this project. So this could vary in various circumstances depending on the needs of the client, right? So in order to select it, this is a typical, like a matrix that could potentially be used to select it. The goal is not to look at each criteria or driver, but to look at the big picture at the end of it, or which column shows the most green. So the green is favorable, and then the red is unfavorable. So you can put together this matrix as the owner. You can look at the important items that you need to address, develop a matrix like this, fill it out based on your knowledge of your project and the intended outcome. And in the end, the one that shows the most green or mix of yellow and red could be the selection of your project. And there's no prescriptive approach. It depends on each situation. So by going through the exercise of looking at this matrix and then determining the drivers of each of the criteria, and then selecting whatever best fits this approach. So what are the key takeaways on the benefits of the collaborative delivery method? First of all, it affords the team to deliver the project on a faster track, because as I said, having the contractor on earlier in the project, you get various input, and then whatever you can do to reduce the schedule, the contractor can provide input on that, be it the sequence of construction or even the type of technology to select. The contractor can provide very valuable input in providing that input earlier in the design, so that it can be incorporated into the design and make sure that it will be delivered on a faster schedule. Also, there is also the potential for cost savings. The contractor can come up with suggestions on alternative equipment or alternative ways of construction that potentially could save the client money on the final project cost. So that early input from the contractor is very key to this delivery approach, and also the need for the collaboration between the designer and the contractor also can help with a lot of cost savings. And there's also reduced risk, because with a collaborative design approach, the contractor is involved right from the beginning, unlike the traditional approach where the contractor has no, I think, prior knowledge on the design intent. So they come in finally when the design is established and then bid. But this one, with a collaborative approach, the contractor is involved right from the start. And by doing that, they can identify any risk and then decide to mitigate the risk earlier on in the design, or even factor that risk as a cost into the final project, so that whatever could have maybe resulted in a traditional approach, which would have resulted in a higher cost, that can be mitigated with a collaborative approach. And also, the one important thing is constructability review. So earlier on in the process, the contractor can come in and tell you that this approach is constructible or not. Going back to the traditional approach, some of the contractors, even before they bid on the project, once they get a document, some of the contractors can see right from the design that there's a mistake over here, and instead of pointing it out, they are not going to do that. They will just keep it to themselves. And once they win the project at a low cost, and they start issuing RFIs, requests for information, just to bump the price up to where they originally wanted to bid, but they just wanted to come in at a low price and just win the contract. But with a collaborative approach, all these constructability issues will be looked at earlier on in the process, so that there's no chance in the end when you move into construction to have any issue with constructability. And there's also price certainty with this type of collaborative approach, because the guaranteed maximum price is set and negotiated on, and once that is agreed on, the project proceeds. So there's price certainty, there's less chance for any change orders, and with the established GMP, the project will likely proceed to that point where it will be delivered within the GMP. And as I indicated earlier, also, once you have the initial collaboration, you can mitigate a lot of risk initially, especially even with supply chain issue that I mentioned, right? That if the project is supposed to be delivered within a specified time, right, you can identify any supply chain issues that could potentially delay the project, and then try to mitigate it early in the design project, so that by the time you move into construction, all these risks would have been mitigated, and to ensure that the project will be delivered within the specified schedule and also within the approved budget. So with this, I would like to end the presentation here and then open the floor for comments and questions and discussion. Thank you.